Canada's merchandise trade gap widened to 574 billion Canadian in February, the biggest deficit in 6 months. Statistics Canada says imports surged to a record 72.1 billion on a spike in gold purchased, while exports also hit their highest levels since last March. The U.S. share of the exports slipped again as Canada sends more goods to other markets.
Canada's merchandise trade deficit blew past forecasts in February, landing at 5.74 billion Canadian dollars, the widest gap in 6 months and more than double the 2.25 billion Canadian dollar economists expected. Statistics Canada also revised January's shortfall up to 4.18 billion Canadian dollars, confirming 5 straight months of deficits and a record 9.92 billion Canadian dollars year-to-date gap for the first 2 months of 2026. The culprit is a surge in imports, which jumped 8.4% to an all-time high of 72.1 billion Canadian dollars, up 7.1% in volume. The spike was led by a 45.6% leap in the metal and non-metallic mineral products category, specifically gold purchases from the United States by Canadian entities. StatsCan notes that on a balance of payments basis, a product is counted as an import when ownership transfers from a foreign entity to a Canadian one, even if it doesn't physically cross the border. Imports of motor vehicles and parts rose 5.9% as Canadian auto plants came back online, and energy product imports climbed 20.1%. Exports also rebounded, rising 6.4% to 66.31 billion Canadian dollars, the highest level since March 2025. Again, gold was a big factor. Exports of unwrought gold, silver, platinum group metals and their alloys increased 14.2%, driven by higher shipments of unwrought gold to the UK. In volume terms, exports were up 4.8%, strong, but not enough to offset the import surge. The report also underlines Canada's shifting trade geography. The share of exports going to the United States fell to just over 66%, down from 68% in January and more than 79% a year ago, when companies were front-loading shipments ahead of U.S. tariff moves. Exports to non-U.S. destinations rose 10.5% to a record 22.27 billion Canadian dollars, while imports from non-U.S. countries increased 1.6% to 29.74 billion Canadian dollars. Canada's long-standing goods surplus with the U.S. narrowed to 1.73 billion Canadian dollars, the smallest since May 2020.